these three women here, you know, I feel especially phenomenal. So I want to thank, you know, in addition, everybody for choosing, and special thanks to Hanam, but also to the group of women who make this happen, for choosing to honor me today for some of the work that I've had a privilege to be part of in the 20 years that I've lived in Los Angeles. Community Services has built a family of programs in the last 15 years that is currently working together to facilitate critical thinking skills, to build sustainable living, and to build community. We have built a social enterprise that currently serves 9,000 families in South Central Los Angeles with fresh food, with fresh, affordable, high-quality food, may I add. You know, and this work is not easy. I don't know how many of you have spent time in neighborhoods like South Central Los Angeles, but they look different, they feel different, and I have to say that that is something that I learned. When I first moved to Los Angeles, I remember moving to South LA, and there are all kinds of reasons why I made that move that is not a subject for tonight. But when I first made that move, I remember moving, and you know, I grew up on the gritty streets of inner city London, right? So I moved to South Central Los Angeles, and I saw these houses, and I saw these front and back yards, these huge streets and these avenues, and I was like, what's impressed about this? I don't understand. You know, like, I'm used to high-rise apartments and teeny little streets, and you know, I don't get it. But you very soon get it when you start actually living there. You know, and just this one issue, there are so many issues we could talk about, but just this one issue of food. You know, we must understand as a society that we can only be as good as the care that we take of our bodies. And when we live in a first world country where there are third world conditions in pockets like South Central Los Angeles, we have to say that really all this nonsense about first world and third world is something that we really need to let go, and we need to understand that as a human race, we have to figure out how we are all collectively going to raise ourselves up and to deal with the issues that face us currently globally. One of these issues, one of the most important issues facing us, is how we grow and how we distribute and engage with food. This is a problem that is central to the way that we are damaging our environment, and it is a problem that is central to how we are not caring for the next generation that is behind us. So Community Services Unlimited recently was able to purchase a 10,000 square foot lot on Vermont and 66th, for those of you who know the neighborhood. And we are currently in the process of developing plans to turn this lot into a community wellness center that will include a produce market, it will include a healthy cafe, an on-site urban farm, and it will also offer wellness services. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, what's the big deal in that? There are these kinds of services all over LA, but not in that part of Los Angeles. There is nothing like this. And I have to say that despite all the promises and all the talk since the rebellion in '92, and I happened to move to Los Angeles soon after that. I moved, you know, a couple of years after that to LA. So I heard all the aftermath of all this talk. I read all the serious articles that were written. I heard all the promises being made, you know, and all the talk about how terrible it is that people who live in the US do not have access to such basic rights. But we have to understand that since '92, there has been a net decrease of these kinds of services, of availability of fresh food, of supermarkets in a neighborhood like South Central Los Angeles. Don't believe what I say. The statistics are all out there. The facts and the studies are all out there, done by universities and academicians, not by me. But these are the facts. But I have to say that like any work that is worthy of of any of us who are here today, this is not work that I've done alone. You know, there's an old saying that behind every great man, there is a great woman. And what I will say is that, just to update that saying perhaps, that beside every great man, there is a phenomenal woman. But also, beside and around and behind and in front of every phenomenal woman, there are many, many phenomenal women. And I say that to say that to be called a phenomenal woman is really quite something. I mean, when I looked up the word, I was like, when I first heard about this, I was like, let me just, what does that actually mean? You know, it's really quite something to be called phenomenal and to be called a phenomenal woman. But I have to say that in receiving this honor most humbly and most gratefully, I do it with the caveat that for each one of us being honored, there are so many dozens upon dozens and hundreds of women around this country and around the world who are doing work that is not being seen, that they're doing quietly, that they are doing and making happen with nothing. And even those women who are not doing work like that, they are raising families, they are taking care of their elders, they are doing the work that we still as a society do not honor, do not pay attention to, much less pay or in any way offer any kind of compensation for. So, as we stand here, as I stand here and the rest of us sit here, as phenomenal women, all of us, and I'm sure a few phenomenal men, because as Amy said, you know, not all the men are bad. We have to acknowledge that, right? But there are some good ones. There are definitely some good ones. I have to say that amongst the hundreds and hundreds of people who I know, I can think of two men who I would have come up here and share the status of phenomenal women with these amazing women. And not because men do not do amazing work of the kind that each of us that you've heard about today and many others in this room are doing, but because most of the time, and not always, but most of the time, men do not have the additional burdens that women also have. They do not have to take care of children, raise families, do housework, think about their elders, right? They do not have to face the onslaught of sexual innuendo and abuse and violence that goes on in this society. And for women of color, as Christy mentioned, there's also the additional and very complicated relationship that we are forced to have with feminism on the one side and loyalty to being a person of color on the other, something that we constantly have to think about how to navigate in our daily existence. So, I hope that some of what I said has inspired you to learn a little bit more about the work that we do. We are at an incredibly important juncture in this work. And I invite anyone here to come to talk to me, to another phenomenal woman, my cohort, Heather Fenny. Can you stand up for a moment, Heather? To find out more about what we do, to see if there are ways that we can work together to partner, but more importantly, to think as you move through our daily lives, to remember that while the four of us are incredibly honored to be here today to receive this award, there are so many other women around us who, while not being awarded, are no less phenomenal than any of us. Thank you.